May I take this opportunity to sincerely thank the organisers of the River of Emotion Symposium and the National Trust Western Australia, and to Professor Susan Broomhall for the invitation to participate in this wonderful occasion. I wish to acknowledge my Noongar elders at the back, Cedric, Dorcas and Fred, and their grandson. I also extend a warm welcome to distinguished guests and other visitors here today. I've been invited to speak at this symposium of the unique image that connects me to the Swan and Canning rivers. These rivers have and I've used some of my paragraphs from the Southwest Aboriginal Sea and Land rivers on the Artronic Trails, because Dorcas and Fred and I were part of that wonderful experience that we all shared. So these rivers have a strong Noongar spiritual connection and a sense of place for our mob. The spirit of the river systems is running through the souls of our Noongar people living in its midst. The waterways, such as the Swan River, literally and spiritually lie in the heart of Whadjuk land and Noongar culture. The river systems is a significant heritage site for the Noongar community, and their cultural history insist that they have responsibility for caring for it. Since the days of colonisation, Noongars have been locked out of key decisions making in relation to the Swan and Canning rivers, and this has prevented them from fulfilling their cultural obligations. Noongar cultural involvement must ensure that cultural interest and heritage sites are protected. There are many Aboriginal sites associated with the two rivers that have strong cultural connections for Noongar men and Noongar women alike. The river systems provide a rich environment for family, social, cultural life, as well as abundance of food and other resources. Both rivers, as Sue said, are registered with Indigenous Affairs as sites of significance, and these rivers are symbolic to the women due to many birthing sites along its rivers. This river is the giver of life and is the importance to us, and we need to care for it. There are many known camp sites throughout the metro area that connects to the waterways that come back to the Swan, the Helena, the Avon and the Canning rivers. As time is of essence, I will leave that part of it, and I will take you on and invite you on my personal and family journey as to why I'm here today. My birthplace is Perth, and I'm a very proud Noongar elder of the Whadjuk people, but my heart country is in Ewart, the most beautiful place that I grew up in, and Ewart is north of Perth, and we have 11 local government shire councils that we work within. My great-grandmother is Cecilia Modoran, who was born in 1855 at Cannington. As fate would have it, Nan was admitted to Nunorcia, St Joseph's Orphanage for Native Girls, at a very young age. But as she grew older, Cecilia met Edward George Wilkes, and they were married at Nunorcia. Cecilia not only became a wife, but she also became a mother to a family of 9 children, 3 sons and 6 daughters. Matthew and Mark, the first 2 born in 1884, and that's when they passed away. Jane was born in 1885 at Nunorcia. Louise was born in 1886 at Wanneroo. Alice was born in 1890 at Dandaragan. Mary Cecilia, who is my grandmother, was born in 1893 at Gingin. Grace was also born at Gingin in 1895. Adeline was born in Lockridge in 1898, and Edgar, the only son, was born at a special birthing site, and it was registered many years ago in Dandaragan, and that place is very significant to us. And at the moment, it's very emotional to the women of Ewart and to others that live in Perth, where we need to open up negotiations with some of the mining companies because they don't respect the site as we do, and mining and dollars, I suppose, speaks in volumes to them. But we have formed a ladies group, and we need to negotiate with all these mining companies and petroleum companies that want to mine in our area. My grandmother was Mary Cecilia Wilkes. Mary met and married William John Headland, and I believe they were the first Noongar couple that wed in the Catholic Church at Moora. Their 6 eldest children was born around Moora. As people may know or may not know, Moora is surrounded by 6 roads that lead in and out of the town. Well, Nan gave birth to 6 of her oldest children on 5 of those roads. So the significance of my family, of my story, is how the family has connections to the 2 rivers. Before Gloria was born, Nan and Pop moved to Perth. And Gloria was born in 1925 at Lockridge, in intent on Hemsley's property, which was very significant to Noongars in those days, because he allowed people to stay on his property, and he protected them from all sorts of government interventions. Hubert was born in 1927, and Hubert is the grandfather of Daisy the Dockers Headland, and he was born in a little, I don't know whether you can see it, but there's a little weatherboard house there, and on that, where that little house is, it's on the bank of the Bennett Brook, which meets the Swan River, and in that tiny little house there, and this is all the veggie and fruit gardens, because Grandad had a green finger for that type of occupation. And we wondered whether Hubert was named after Mr. Hemsley, because he bears his second name. And Betty was born in Midland. And Madge and Cliff, out of all those children, they were the only 2 babies that was ever born in a hospital, and they were both born at King Edward. Another member of our family was born in 1935, where the Swan River and the Canning meet. She was the daughter of Grace, who I mentioned earlier. So Success Hill, Lockridge, Bassendean, Guildford, Eden Hill, Bayswater, Belmont and Kalamunda are the areas where our grandparents and their young families lived. And while staying on the Hemsley property, the Noongar women were able to do their washing where there is a little soak that comes out at the side of Success Hill. And when they finished their washing, they were able to, because there were no clotheslines in those days, so they just had to use the thick bush around them to put their washing on to dry. And as I said, Grandad was a very good gardener, and he was able to supply the Amsleys with fruit and veggies from his little grown crops on that part of the river there. And I know we've got to keep it short and sweet. So I suppose the final part of my story is that I would like to end with is about my 2 Swedish grandparents. Peter Headland and his son Joseph had luggers, the Brother and the Mystery, and they both sailed from the port of Fremantle up and down the West Australian coast, taking supplies and stocks up to the mangrove swamps, because Port Hedland wasn't heard of in those days, and they used to take a lot of things up there for Mr. Padbury, and they'd bring their luggers in as close as they can to the mangrove swamps and offload supplies and stock. And Port Hedland was named after my great-grandfather, or great-great-grandfather, Peter Hedland. So it's not only just that little bit of history about the Swan River, but I also hold it very dear to my heart because having been brought up in the Ewart area, which I'm more familiar with and can speak more highly of, there is still a connection between the Ewart people and the early settlement of Perth, because where the Brand Highway is now, that used to be the old stock road and some sections of it. But our waterways, and we've got two significant rivers in our area, which is the Moore River, which runs right through like the Swan does here and divides Moore on one side and the other side. And then that runs out to where Gilderton is, and that's the mouth of the Moore. But the other significant river is Hills River. And we do have a lot of waterways, and it's very rich in fauna and flora. And it's the keeper of some of our Dreamtime stories too, because our waterways connect us on the top of the surface, underground, and they do come down into this area. And when people travelled, they did travel down the Wanneroo Road into where Northbridge is now, and that's where people congregated for sharing of culture, and then they journeyed on to Pinjarra for other celebrations of culture. And one of the things that my dad always told me about, as a young child growing up in the Success Hill area, he said that the banks used to be like a beach with the white sands, and he used to get a sheet of iron and put his little sister Betty on the back of that, and used to slide down the banks into the river with her until the day he nearly drowned her, and that was the end of that little story. But Dad could not, we lost him at the age of 91, and he, for many reasons, we used to bring him back when the Swan and the Bassendean Shires were doing things out in that area, and I think Dad was very disturbed to see the changes within Success Hill from what he saw as an adult to what he remembered as a child. So he had many wonderful stories to tell us about that area, and even in the area where the picnic sites are, they used to, with little buckets, go there and gather the couch grass and go over to the Swan District's football oval, and they were paid 5 cents or 5 pence, I think, in those days, for every little bucket they took over there. So he was one of the ones that looked back proud at the Swan football oval and think that he could made a contribution to growing the grass on that oval. So there could be many more stories that I could share, but I think I'll leave it there, and I do thank you for having me here and walking on a journey with me. Thank you very much.